great to see you all again. Welcome back to Infinity and Beyond, AANE's premier live stream, where we talk about issues that matter to us, the autistic community.
Us.
My name's Liv Gallup. You know me if you've been here before. If not, hi, what's up? My name's Liv. I am joined tonight by my lovely co-host, Bob Waters. Who is a good friend and very knowledgeable about all the stuff that we are going to go over today. What stuff is that, you may ask? Well, fun fact. No, you're all good. Fun fact, it is Autism Acceptance Month, as a lot of us may know. We've talked about this at length on other videos that we've posted. And you may even have some thoughts about it yourself, about this whole month of acceptance that we have. What a nice time to bring it up, because it also happens to be the 2-year anniversary of this very live stream. We've been doing this for 2 years, and I spoke about this exact topic right here in this chair 2 years ago, which is exciting. So we're very excited to have you all here and celebrate that with us, along with the topics that we're going to be going over today. And just for anybody who is new, AANE, this organization that you are watching this live stream from, provides services to autistic folks, their families, and the folks and professionals that support them. You can click the link in the description to learn more. Like I said, my name is Liv. I've been diagnosed with spectrumhood since I was 6, and I'm 31 now. I am a published author on the intersection of being queer and autistic, and I'm excited to get things going. I've talked a lot. Hey, Bob, who are you? Sorry, to more constructively ask that, could you tell go ahead.
I was going to say, for all the Broadway lovers out there, it's like that quote from The Drowsy Chaperone. Who are you? Who am I? And why is the cake on fire?
Awesome. Hell yeah.
My name is Bob Waters. I use he, him pronouns. I am another employee here at AANE, along with my colleague Liv. I was diagnosed myself when I was 11. I'm also 31. And I've been working here at A&E for 3 years now, almost 3 years, and I love doing this work. It's mainly education and support, advocacy, holding space for folks who have lots of questions, whether that's in informational phone calls or the support groups that we run. Just doing our best to provide a neuro-affirming space to folks who desperately need one, which is everyone, neurodivergent people and neurotypical people, although Liv and I work with neurodivergent adults. But neuro-affirming spaces are something that should just be a part of every environment that we are in, and the world would be really nice if that was more and more true all the time. And today we're talking about autistic history since this is April, the Autism Acceptance Month, which is an evolution from the so-called Autism Awareness Month, which I believe was started by Autism Speaks. I'm not sure. It's sort of a gentle transition in the same way that Columbus Day in October is transitioning into Indigenous Peoples Day. The same event with a different lens, a different focus, and the same amount of taking time to pay attention to these things out of our days. So, that's my general thoughts on April for autism. Is the conversations about autism being just sort of public and talked about by people who aren't talking about it all day long like we do here at A&E. Autistic history and / the history of autism fits right into that. So that's it's a great topic of conversation.
Indeed, for sure. And we do have a lot to go over in that respect. So I think we're in a strange time. There's a saying that a friend of mine taught me a while back, where if you are told that we live in interesting times, not quite a compliment.
No, not at all.
And I would
I,
say this. I would say the same of the current dealio that we're having right
yeah,
now. And
yeah. The quote that
so
I was taught was as an insult, "May you live in interesting
that's
times."
exactly
For
it. That's exactly it. The same thing for sure.
yes.
It's
There's that other quote which is there's decades where nothing happens, and then weeks where decades happen. So
I feel like we're in those weeks right now where decades are happening.
yes. I mean, me personally, I had like weeks happening today while I was sitting at my computer trying to get work done.
Betcha.
But so that was like weeks happening in a day. But yeah, sorry, I jumped on whatever you were saying.
No, you're so good. It's in these interesting times, we I think it would behoove us to talk about kind of where we've come from as autistic people,
Yes.
and build that all the way up to where we are now. It's I think it's important to realize, all the struggle that we've gone through and how a lot of that is still prevalent today.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yeah, no, that's a great point, Liv. So, I think all of you here watching understand the gravity of the seismic shift in attitudes about and even definitions of neurodivergence, neurotypicality, expectations based on age and gender and all the stuff that comes along with these things. The seismic changes that have happened in the last 30 years or so, and especially in the last 10 years. It can be overwhelming. If you're someone who has been an adult longer than 30 years ago, all of this is just sort of this massive revelation. We talk to folks at AANE every day who come to us like, oh my God, like this happened to me and this makes sense, and this happened to me and this makes sense. But yeah, just to briefly touch on, just for the subject of autistic history, where we came from, etc. Autistic people, first of all, have always been around. Neurodivergent people have always been around. And people who, I want to say, people who practice the act of neurotypicality, right, have always been around. Neurotypicality is defined as like a value system or like a set of expectations of like, oh, you are a grown man, you are a grown woman, you must do this. Or, oh, children must do this, 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 and this. Or you must communicate like this, this, and this. Or you are cool if you use language like this, 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 and this, but not if you use like this, this, and that. So that process in the human condition has always been there. And the changes in what those definitions are vast, right? Neurotypicality is very culturally constructed. What's considered neurotypical in one culture is very different than in another culture. Different cultures have, just for a brief example, have different definitions of what's an appropriate level of loud noise, right? So, you could have a lot of sound sensitivity, right, and be considered weird and quiet in a very loud culture. At the same time, someone who likes to talk really big and talks really fast in a culture that values like restraint and quietness is like judged as weird, right?
Right.
So these are issues of value systems and then conforming to expectations versus not conforming to expectations. So that process has just always happened. It's a kind of pigeon language, so to speak, of everyone's basic presentation and like shaping it into common norms. However, the quote unquote history of autism is very much tied into the medical diagnosis of autism. So for those of you who've read up on the various histories of autism, you'll know that in the 1920s, there was a Russian woman named Grunya Sukhareva who did a study with children who, like, quote unquote, were socially misfits or whatever. And then obviously building off on that research was the quite controversial Hans Asperger, who is quite discredited in many ways, and I'd say most ways. Followed by Leo Kanner, who sort of created the classical archetype of autism in the 1950s. I often talk with clients about this idea of like the character of autism, right?
Right.
How it's like, well, I'm not autistic. Even people who, fit some of the characteristics of the character, right? They struggle with verbal language. They have very intense sensory needs, dietary needs, routine restrictions. People who still say, well, I'm not that person,
Right.
right? And often it's for something as simple as you're not a white 8-year-old boy.
Right. I think this a lot of people view like I'm glad you brought it up as like the character of autism, because I think that
Yeah.
a lot of what people think autism is like you said, the white 8-year-old boy who like, has like no social awareness and has like a lot of like funny stims and stuff, funny quote unquote, in like, other people's eyes.
And makes people uncomfortable. That's a key.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, exactly. Right, for sure. And so I think actually you just informed me of this earlier today, but there was a wonderful person who actually like started to bring about this image of autistic folks as like, people who are, competent and like part of society. I think it was Lorna Wing, right?
Yes, it was Lorna Wing. And I just want to be clear that the division of functioning labels that has happened since the work of Lorna Wing is incorrect.
Right.
There are, countless, folks who are non-speaking or who are intellectually disabled, who, fall into traps of being assumed to not be people. The scholar Mel Baggs has this. Everyone should watch Mel Baggs's work. Has this idea of the unperson, right? So someone who isn't an inanimate object like a rock or a desk or something, but like doesn't fit the category of human being enough to be like treated as a human being, right? And all of the problematic stuff that comes with that, all of the lack of agency, people making choices for you, etc. That to say that people who traditionally are called quote unquote high functioning, who mask into what's expected of them enough to either not make people uncomfortable, like basically people who wouldn't have been institutionalized in a pre-1960s world, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like all of the stuff that our clients talk about, why am I so lazy, or why am I so weird and no one likes me, or why this and that. These ideas of like moral issues, right? The ideas of low and high functioning are a binary between this idea of like the unperson and like the failed person, all in quotes, right?
Right, of course.
So there's like someone who other people project their image of like either, removing them from society or saving them and transforming them into human beings, right? That these ideas of like personhood, or well, you're a person, like you have dignity, you have assumed competence, but you're just, a weird failure. Like, stop talking so weird. Stop.
Right. If only you just were normal.
We're normal. Yeah. And Lorna Wing is very important because people who fall under that categorization, which describes the vast majority of the folks we work with here at AANE, didn't like quote unquote exist in medical literature at all before the early 1980s.
Yeah.
So what Lorna Wing did was the aforementioned studies by Hans Asperger, which is a topic for a different day, weren't available in English. And she spoke fluent German. She was a child psychologist in England. She translated his work and suddenly realized that, oh my gosh, these people who aren't, who don't stand out enough to warrant the institutionalization that was common in the mid 20th century and earlier, who don't stand out enough for that treatment, but who misalign from what we now call the neurotypical expected world, are everywhere. they fit into different social archetypes of types of people. They are part of every extended family that like ever exists, whereas people just sort of moralized their you know, behaviors or cultures or language practices as like moral choices. There's everywhere. So Lorna Wing coined the phrase Asperger's syndrome in around the year 1980, 1981, 1982 in the UK. And then that idea of quote unquote high functioning autism, where there's people who like pass enough to not be, you know, forcibly institutionalized and or discriminated against in like the ways of like the quote unquote unperson, they exist, right? That idea entered the United States in around the time of the DSM-4 in 1994.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, Lorna Wing. Yeah, but earlier we talked about like Leo Kanner, like sort of the classical archetype of the autistic character. Yeah, from his work, and also from just sort of like all the ideas that came with this. Again, this idea of the quote unquote unperson that is so harmful. Like you know, the whole Bruno Bettelheim frigid mothers thing,
Right. Right.
like 60s, the whole, you know, like the idea, but the idea behind like the Autism Speaks puzzle piece, right?
Right. Of course. Like
My child is missing a puzzle piece, and when we finally get the thing to plug the piece in, then they're a human being.
then
like
they'll be normal. Then they'll be normal.
Yeah,
No, this whole idea of like this whole like heinous idea that like there must be some reason why my child isn't good enough. That's what that always told me. We're like missing a puzzle piece. It's the parents' fault. Like, you know, there must be a fault. There must be a problem. And yet we're finally, weirdly, simultaneously at a time where most people who give a shit, frankly, have come to the correct conclusion that autism is as much empowerment as it is disability. And like disability is not a bad word. Like it, you know, it shows us like what kind of like supports that a person might need. That's great. And then also we get to do all this like empowerment stuff, you know, like, you know, just to call it just a superpower is belittling, and to call it just a disability is limiting. And in tandem, then, you know, that's cool. That's really cool. And so it's interesting that we are at this point where that is well understood amongst a lot of people and most of our own population. And yet, you know, our, whatever his title is, our like health commissioner is going to be like, I'll find the root of autism by September. Like, okay, man, it's it is archaically backwards, even though we know that that is not true anymore.
He is about 40 years, 30 years, I guess even for most people, 20 years, like out of date in terms of understanding of what's happening. Yeah, so the history of autism is sort of like a history of ourselves, but more than like the history of the medical labels, the DSM-4 in 1994, the DSM-5 in 2013. The quote-unquote history of autism is really the history of this idea of neurotypicality and why it isn't biologically inherent, and why it's not like teleologically like correct, right? Something that almost every single client I've ever worked with has expressed in some way or another is this assumption that there's like one day when I'm like normal, one day when I am the real version of me that like I'm failing at right now and have failed at for years, right? That idea of being a failed person is not based in who you actually are. Like something I always say, and I always get a lot of like, like from clients is who you are right now, sitting at your computer right now with all of the stuff, all of the angst, all of the sense of failure, all of the like, I want to do this thing and I can't do it. All of it is a completed destination. The completed destination changes moment by moment because time exists.
Totally.
But you're not missing a puzzle piece. Like there's suffering in your life and there's a lack of access to goals, which can be improved up or things can be moved around in your life so that you have access to things and flexibility in terms of what you want to do, right? Which, is the entire point of disability studies. Like people who use assisted movement, like a wheelchair, they're not like broken because they're in a wheelchair. They actually, like, the wheelchair is the thing that improves their life. The wheelchair gives them access
Right.
to the world as long as the world accommodates wheelchairs. So, you are complete. I'm saying this to the audience. You are complete as you are right now. There are barriers that are real that you bump into when moving about the field of like your life. And those access barriers are not moral failings of yours. The system that abandons you and says, oh, well, the rules are different now, right? Either you are cutthroat, ruthless, stock trading, gazillionaire, or you're homeless. Like that moral system that we live in.
Right, of course.
Is not a moral failing of yours. Your existence as you are is complete, and the systems around you that aren't accommodating you can be changed to give who you are access to the life that you deserve and the access that you deserve.
Absolutely.
So we're veering away from autistic history, but all of us are autistic history as well.
No, I mean that's like incredibly important to highlight anyway. And I also just want to give you the compliment. I love how you articulate this every time that we get on these topics. It feels very empowering to me, and I'm sure plenty more people. So you're awesome. But
when I was in college, I studied in a room, like a study room, and people write graffiti on the wall and stuff. And in one of there's this one particular room, and it was one of my favorite rooms. The red like destination pin on Google Maps was just big on the wall, and every time I sat there, I looked at that and I was like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
This is the definition. Like, I'm here.
Right.
Like, yes, I'm sitting here at my computer, like, oh my God, when is this going to end? When am I going to get lunch? When am I going to, who am I going to be? Like, and it's like, okay, this is it. This is the, fantasy in 8th grade of like, I'm really doing it. I'm a college student.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
With our future tense thinking, we always forget that.
Right. For sure. Another thing that you actually that you taught me earlier today was that you informed me of the details of because we've gone over a lot of how there's been plenty of misconceptions all the way from when it was like Leo Kanner and Hans Asperger.
Yeah.
And all the way back then there's been misconceptions about us, miscategorizations, pathologizing where it was unnecessary, all the way until now. There's been, we've been kind of working up towards, being, well respected. There was a particular moment, that, against this narrative that like, we're broken, we need help, we need curing, that the lovely folks at ASAN spearheaded.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that? Like, what happened? What did Autism Speaks do? Because Autism Speaks did something, and then what did ASAN do in retaliation?
Yeah, I don't want to butcher all the details, so I am going to find the exact quotes. But basically there was a I don't know if it was Autism Speaks. I don't want to speak specifically.
Okay. That's fair.
But there was some kind of advertising campaign that equated autism to like death, or autism to not being a person, or something. There was some tagline in a bunch of billboards that were popping up somewhere about that. And ASAN, which was a fairly new organization at the time, got a letter writing campaign, and the very early days of social media, this happened maybe 20 years ago, a campaign to get the signs taken down amongst like local folks. And the local lawmakers were like, wait, what? Like autistic people like can be like lawyers, and autistic people can like advocate for things.
Oh, we can be here. We can do cool things. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I don't want to comment on the situation, not knowing entirely what it was, but
Sure,
that's
of
the
course.
gist of
Yeah.
of what I remember about that. Oh.
That's awesome. And like, yeah, what an incredible pivotal moment, because obviously like what ASAN did was incredible, for our, like for like our optics, and like, but then also it set the, it set a social precedent that you don't speak of autistic people that way. Like, people who put up those signs, like that is actually incorrect. And then what time frame was this? Was it 80s, 90s?
This event?
Yeah.
No. This was in the 2000s. I found it.
Even more recent.
This was in 2009, and it was in fact Autism Speaks.
Okay.
Autism Speaks had a fundraising video called "I Am Autism." They reacted in horror. It presented autistic people as kidnapped victims and burdens on their families who needed to be rescued. Yeah. Oh, here it is. A sinister character. I am autism. I have no interest in right or wrong. I will plot to rob you of your children and your dreams. And if you're happily married, I will make sure that your marriage fails. Your money will fall into my hands, and I will bankrupt you for my own self-gain, proclaimed the spooky announcer as a fundraising like thing. And that's some BS. And
yeah, to put it lightly, Jesus Christ.
yeah, and so no, and you talked earlier about like this moment that we're in, right? It's so important. It's so important for things that are being done wrong, right? To, obviously being inclusive, being nonviolent, etc., but to fight back against BS, right?
Yes.
So that was a situation where, like, think about Stonewall, right? Before Stonewall, it was just, okay, we're just gonna raid the bars, like, okay, like you only can go to places where like the mob controls it, like whatever.
Right.
But the community, like, pushing back against being pushed around wasn't like, this terrible, horrible thing. It was equilibrium, right? Having equilibrium to call out nonsense is crucial. Mm-hmm. And it's important to be mindful of how you do it, not to be too baited, not to be, not to fall into whatever. But what ASAN did in that moment was a very important step in realizing that there are natural consequences to dehumanizing language.
Yes.
That both there are natural consequences in the sense of like, if this is everywhere, ordinary people are just going to like take it as a message that like what autism means is like kidnap victim death or whatever, right? That is the natural consequence of letting that go unchallenged.
Right. And
that a natural consequence is that there will be pushback, that there will be resistance to that.
For sure. And we see that all the way up until today, where,
yes.
we like, I was, shitting on RFK earlier, and let me do it again because, like, you know, when when he says, like, you know, I will find the cure for autism by September. I don't know if he said like cure or cause or whatever, but like, you know, it's this very like, you know, I'm gonna find the missing puzzle piece kind of rhetoric.
Oh yeah,
and,
of course.
And of course, all of us are like, no, honey. Like, you know, we're like, he's getting railed against like really, really hard, as we should. And, you know, that's just to your point of like, you know, when you espouse this hateful language, you should expect pushback. And that's what's happening. And I'm glad to see it.
Yeah. I mean, but don't you know, Olive, that we live in a post-truth era? So like truth doesn't actually, you know, exist anymore, right? So,
Yeah.
you know,
So
I can just say things.
So
I'm being facetious. We do not live in a post-truth era. When you fight reality, reality wins.
Yeah. So that's actually a thing though, where forgive me, I didn't prepare this remark, so I don't have all the details about it. But there's I'm sure a lot of us listening might know of a lovely YouTube essayist who is my favorite. She's ContraPoints, Natalie Wynn.
Yes.
And she has a segment where she talks about conservatism, and there's a book that's like a conservative playbook almost, and I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but in it suggests that you can use history to your agenda more so than like actually like altering what you're doing to like the actual reality history. It essentially tells you to make shit up. I will find the name of this. If not during this stream, I'll come back and comment it at a later time. But, you know, it like, I know you said you were being facetious there, but it's kind of true. Like, you know, if you want to be an oppressive conservative, you're literally told to make shit up. And like, we know that because we see it all the freaking time.
Yep. The George Orwell quote, if you control the past, you control the future. And if you control the present, you control the past.
Right. Ugh, too bad. But yeah, so like we have struggled like this for a long time and still today. You know, we can, but like that's not to say that like, you know, there like we've gone like without progress. Obviously there's been wonderful progress. Even like, you know, how things were written down for like in the DSM-4 versus the DSM-5 is like, you know, it's a little better. Like it's still not perfect, but it's a little better. What do you think that autistic people face nowadays that is actually like a big like point of progress for us? Like, you know, like what freedoms do you like that you and I are the same age? What freedoms do you and I have nowadays that we might not have had like when we were growing up?
One that immediately jumps to mind is that many people had, well, and this is still a massive problem today, and having service needs believed is a big one.
Definitely. Absolutely.
I mean, everyone we talk to has had the issue of their service needs not being believed.
Definitely.
At the same time, people, you know, even being able to talk about this stuff and, you know, advocate for care in workplaces and in schools, or even in their personal lives, or being able to just say, like, honestly, having the language as a tool is so incredible. I mean,
definitely.
When I was a teenager, there was like 3 or 4, you know, books about Asperger's syndrome or like memoirs or whatever. If I had like Unmasking Autism by Devin Price when I was a teenager, I could have avoided so much like nonsense, right? Awareness about the demedicalized nature of neurodivergence, expanding, understanding that it's about cultural values about presentation and performance, and how people who either do those values with intense masking or who deviate from that based on disability, right?
Right.
The change in language is just utterly astonishing in the scope. I mean, even children today, like children and teenagers, have access to. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of terrible stuff about social media, right?
Right.
And the ability to access information quickly has meant that if even one person shares their truth in a way that's sincere and meaningful, it reaches people in a way that was just not possible 30 or 40 years ago.
Absolutely true. Yeah, for sure.
I mentioned Mel Baggs earlier. If Mel Baggs had been alive in the 1960s or 70s, like no one would have, or maybe a few people, but Mel Baggs did most of their. They passed away, but they did most of their content on YouTube and like they had a blog.
Yep.
And just really, really, really amazing scholarship on disability. Everyone should read Mel Baggs' stuff, and also Cal Montgomery. Max Sparrow, who's a friend of AANE.
Big fans of Max Sparrow here, for sure.
Yeah, Nick Walker, all kinds of people. Yeah, even the language being used. I mean, for those of you who don't know, like Jim Sinclair was an activist who wrote this really moving essay called "Don't Mourn for Us" in the 1990s, like at the very beginning of the internet.
Yes.
There's the list of advocates who talk about neurodivergence and disability as social issues has just exploded in number and influence in ways that have changed people's lives. Not enough, but it's an area of progress. It's an area of access to information, and people are starting to see themselves a little better. Definitely. One person at a time.
What you said at the beginning of this portion, where you said that people are actually like taking us seriously, taking our needs seriously.
Yeah.
I vividly remember the times where being in school and like trying to say anything about like how something wasn't working for me was met with something that you mentioned earlier, a moral judgment, where Liv, why can't you just make yourself remember these things? Part of my autism is executive dysfunction. Scheduling and timing is just a nightmare for me if it's not in my regular routine. And so it would be viewed as like, Liv, you're being so forgetful. Why are you doing that? Why? That's the question that I would always get. Why? Yeah. And I could never explain it other than it just happens. And it turns out, as I grew up, I realized that's all the explanation that was ever needed. It just happens because that's part of my neurotype. And I have supports in place that help me a lot with that now. I have very kind people that help me with that now. And, things are better as a result. And seldom is it a moral failing, as, when people prescribe it to me. Like, people seldom give me moral judgments over it anymore. And that change in rhetoric is incredible. But, I'm still, like, wary of it because, like, an entire childhood of that leaves you with a little bit of PTSD, and I say that using the term seriously. Like I think that has like it actually like makes me feel like that.
What mistake am I making right now, and how do I?
Yes,
right now. Right now on this live stream, Liv, you and I are making some terrible mistake, and neither of us know that it's happening. And
what is it?
Not only do we not know that it's happening, but later we're going to be punished for it, and it will have been our responsibility that we will have to atone for.
Of course, yes, right.
Yeah, and we just don't know what it is.
Yep. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to prepare for it, but I am for sure anxious.
Yes. Autistic Catholic guilt. without the Catholicism, or maybe with the Catholicism, depending on who you are.
Man, that could be like a whole thing of like, delving into like the prescription of guilt as it comes from like, Puritan American society. Like, like I wish we had time for that, but like,
oh yeah, 100%. Really quick, just a brief anecdote about things changing. I was once in a support group, and it wasn't here at AANE. It was before I started working here.
Sure.
For autistic adults, and this woman told this story that has stuck with me for years and years. She said that when she was in middle school, she was like considered like weird and scary, and like no one liked her and whatever. And she lived in a small rural school somewhere, I forget what state, but like a tiny place.
Right.
And she said that this was in the 90s, and she said that the Columbine shooting happened, which obviously was this horrific event.
Right.
And she said, it was just astonishing. She said, well, my principal and the superintendent made up some like fake thing to expel me based on like fears that I was going to, do Columbine or whatever. They made something up. And she said that like her parents were unfortunately didn't have the like education to know that that was like illegal. And they just left and were like ashamed. Right? A story like that, if it happened today, would just explode across countless, Facebook groups and all over Blue Sky and everything else.
Right.
As isolating as the social media ecosystem that we have makes us, the fact that information itself can travel has made a huge difference to people's educational access to what neurodiversity is, what people's rights are, what ways to treat themselves better.
Definitely. Yeah. Our collective consciousness as neurodivergent and specifically autistic folks, I feel like, is stronger than ever, and I see that in our community here at AANE. Also, I don't know if you've ever joined one of Dr. Price's live streams, but it's an awesome time in there.
Oh man, no, I haven't. I when Dr. Price spoke at our job about a year ago, I was there, but not Dr. Price's actual live streams on social media. No.
For sure, yeah. I mean, you get the idea. Like, he's been, like, he's been so cool and radical, like the entire time. He just published. This is a tangent. I'm sorry, but he just published this thing recently about how he said abolish age, and it meaning that like kids, even when they're young and like below legal age of like being able to like choose things for themselves, deserve respect and autonomy as well. Like, and it's like, no, duh, oh my god, but like he had to like
for many people it's not duh.
I know, and like that's like, I'm really glad that he went out of his way to say that anyway. But anyway, I will let folks go and indulge his work if they would like to learn more about that. Dr. Devin Price, you should go indulge his work for sure.
Absolutely.
We are reaching about like the last 5 minutes or so of our stream right now. And so I wanted to end on like an empowering note, like a battle cry, so to speak. If you could tell folks like, if an autistic person asked you, how can I go forth and empower myself in this time where I am facing so much stigma and the government is trying to crash down on me and like pathologize my disability so that I don't have any autonomy, and I'm scared. How do I empower myself going forward in, at least the next 4 years, if not on to forever? What would you say?
The single biggest skill, and this is true for all people, the single biggest skill is to learn how to carry your feelings with you as you make decisions about life.
Sure.
We as human beings can't decide outcomes in life. We just can't, right? You and I could just get heart attacks and just die, and then like right now, and yep, and Ryan would have to, you know, shut off the live stream and call an ambulance. But the story that you tell yourself and about your life is true no matter the size of your circumstances.
You goddamn absolutely
right. I think about people. I mean, this is a very intense example. There's this news story about this young man in Connecticut who was, you know, a domestic abuse survivor who was imprisoned in his home. Some of you might know that story, for 20 years. And he had a story about himself. Yes, he had all kinds of trauma, all kinds of, I'm sure there's people out there, why didn't you leave sooner? It's like, that's not how it works. Like, you either... like I didn't leave my house for months during COVID, right? It's like, why didn't you just leave? It's like, well, it's not as simple.
Baby. Yeah.
Yeah. But the story that you tell yourself about who you are, about what you want to do, and what you will try to do is not something anyone can take away from you.
Absolutely.
You can be present with your fear. You can be present with your grief. You can be present with your joy. As autistic people, we're often taught that our joy is dangerous or like childlike, or dangerous because it's childlike.
Never.
Be present with your joy. Be present with your fear. Be present with your triggers if you have a crazy anxiety disorder, or if you have psychosis and you hear voices, or if you have PTSD and get like really intense flashbacks. It is possible to have those things happen to you, to carry them with you while you choose things that you value. Even if you like can't do something because of a disability barrier. It could be a physical thing. It could be an emotional thing, right? Like today, I did not have the spoons to leave my house today and still do everything I needed to do for work, right? But I was choosing, like, it was like, even though I can't do that, what can I do? Even in the tiny little spaces, when you're paralyzed, when you're in prison, when you're dying in your deathbed, you always have choices about how to see what is happening and how to let go of harmful processes like I'm not good enough, or I'll never be the way my mom wanted me to be, or I'm whatever. All of that is accessible. Always. So if you're out there watching us on your computer and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, I'm 45 and don't have friends or a partner, and my parents are passing away and I don't know how to make money, right? All of these things. You sitting there at your chair right now, you are at the destination of, I'm here right now. I'm not a failed version of something. I'm sitting here in my body existing.
Right.
I carry these feelings with me. All the grief, all of the anxiety disorder triggers, they can be there. And how can I be myself next? If you can't leave the house, right? Can I take a shower now? Can I eat something now? Oh, I don't want to get out of bed. Okay. Can I stop scrolling for 10 minutes and let my brain cool off? Always, no matter the size of your circumstances, there are decisions about yourself that are not about punishing yourself. They're about choosing yourself and not reacting to feelings or fear.
That is goddamn right. That's so righteous and true. Bob, how are you going to choose yourself today? How, after we sign off and you go and do your next thing, how are you going to choose yourself?
Well, the immediate next thing, I'm running a game night with some folks, and I'm going to do it because I value the work that I do here at AANE. I value the space that I hold for these clients to play some games. Afterwards, I'm going to eat something. I'm going to pick one or two of the non-work tasks that I haven't done today and do them. It could be something as simple as, oh, there's that pile. I can move a few objects from that pile.
A few objects, absolutely.
I'm not gonna fix everything, but it's not the completed action that matters. It's the doing it.
Yep, absolutely, for sure.
It's the process of choosing yourself.
It is a process. You're right, and I'm really glad that you're going to do that. I will also articulate that after I'm done with this, I'm going to, because I have been on my feet and working all day, so I'm going to make a piece of clothing that makes me feel pretty. Because I like how I look and I want to look better, and I can facilitate that.
A fun discovery. You just said you've been on your feet hurting all day. A fun thing that people by and large can budget in. It's only about $30. Those massage gun things with the balls at the end.
Oh my God,
it's a game changer. I have weird random sore muscles all the time. I've heard the term hypermobility. I don't exactly know what that is, but a lot of autistic people experience that.
My partner does. Yeah, she has all sorts of gadgets to help her with that.
Yeah, anything where it's hey, I can just exist in my body.
Yep, absolutely.
Things to take care of yourself. Suffering is not the rent you have to pay to exist as a fully formed human being, despite what John Calvin said.
Motherfucker. Thank you. That's all incredible. And for there's 16 folks who are listening to us right now. As we wrap up today, I would like you guys to all think about how you will choose yourselves today, tomorrow, and however long in the future you can plan for. If it's just today, if it's just the next 10 minutes, that's awesome. Just consider for a moment how you will choose yourself. And with that, I think we can wrap up. Bob, thank you so much for all of your incredibly righteous words. I love having you on the show. You are just constantly such a cool and empowering voice to be heard, and I'm glad that you're continuing to do it.
Thank you. Are there any comments in the chat? I don't have access to the live stream.
Here there's tons. Folks were saying they liked that we shouted out Devin Price. That was cool. Actually, they also liked that we shouted out ContraPoints. Molly said she was gonna cry while you were making your last points there. There's a lot of just good thank yous and stuff. Not many questions today. One of our commenters also figured out that RFK said he was going to find the cause of autism by September. So thank you, Shane, for clearing that up. Just a lot of people agreeing with what we said, which makes us feel good, obviously.
He might say that we need to eat whale heads in order to not be autistic anymore.
Shit, man. I mean, I'll try anything once, right?
Instead of COVID vaccines, the Department of Health and Human Services might mail all American citizens their own whale head.
Oh,
right?
Wow. What do you know about that?
We'll just wake up, we'll just wonder what that smell is, and we'll just come at the door, and it's wait, I don't have a cat. What brought me this whale head?
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, just one more time, I just wanted to say that AANE is an organization that provides services to autistic folks, their families, and the folks and professionals that support them. Click the link in the description, also in the comment box made by Maggie, if you'd like to learn more. Bob and I both run groups here at the organization, so if you'd like to do anything from join a support group to play games to just network with fellow autistic folks and be in community, You can join groups with either of us or a variety of lovely facilitators that want to make all of our lives better. And to everybody listening, thank you so much. You're great. Thanks for being here. This was actually one of our most popular live streams to date, which is great. Whoa. Because for those who weren't here in the beginning, it's the 2-year anniversary of this live stream. So thank you for making our second birthday so cool and fun. And we'll see you next time. We run this every month, so we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night and take care of yourselves.
Goodbye.